Hi, today I want to talk to you about signed routes in Laravel. Signed routes are used for stuff where you want to have a publicly facing URL, but you want to have some level of security, meaning like you want to make sure the URL wasn't modified in any way. For example, I created this route that takes a user and then here you will unsubscribe the user. This could be used for like a newsletter link at the bottom of the email or something like that. Then it returns just unsubscribe. This is just as an example. So we pass the ID of the user. Here you can see I'm using the ID 1. So if I visit the URL, I get unsubscribed from the list. In this case, we can have bad actors that can unsubscribe people from our list just by changing the ID here. So if I change it to 2, now I unsubscribe the user with the ID 2. So that is a problem that we can solve with signed URLs. To show you how they work, I'm gonna use another route. I declared this route just so we can print the generated URL to the browser. To create the URL with a signature, we're gonna use the URL facade. So I'm gonna return URL, and then we're gonna call the sign URL method. And then as a parameter, we need to pass the name of the route. If you haven't noticed, I gave this one the name unsubscribe. So I'm gonna type that. And then as a second parameter, we want to pass all the attributes or the values that a route is gonna need. So in this case, the user ID, and we're gonna pass them as an array. User with the ID 1. Okay, so now if I visit that route, I get a generated URL, and in this URL we can see that Laravel automatically generated a signature with a hash at the end, and this hash represents the body of the URL encrypted in some way, so we can check that the URL wasn't modified in any way. So if I change this for a 2 or another ID, the hash won't match the URL, and we know it is invalid. So we now have the signature, but we still need to check if the signature is valid in our route here. So to do that, we can call the has valid signature in the request object. So I'm gonna do that if it doesn't. So not request has valid signature. If it doesn't have a valid signature, I will abort with the code 403, which is unauthorized, I think. So now if I go to this URL that doesn't have a signature and I refresh it, I'm gonna get forbidden. Now I need to have the signatures, but if I copy this one that does have a signature and I paste it here, I get unsubscribed, and that's what we want. Now notice that I can't change this for a 2 because it will say that it is not a valid signature, and I get forbidden again. That is essentially how the URLs work. We can still make this a little better by removing this if statement and making use of the signed middleware that Laravel provides. So I'm gonna delete this, and then I'm gonna add a middleware call here. And then I'm gonna call the middleware signed. This is included in Laravel, and the middleware that we're using is actually called validate signature. So if we visit this middleware, we can see that it's doing essentially what we had in our controller, but instead of returning 403, it's trying an invalid signature exception. So if I visit this page again with the invalid signature, because I changed it to, I'm gonna get 403 error, but the message will be invalid signature. And that's how we can use signed URLs and signed routes in our Laravel application. Thank you for watching, and that's all for today.